All right, so I do see that we have 5 of us here, so we will get the show started. It is 4:06 p.m., so I'll call to order the meeting of the Airport Commission. Commissioners attending remotely, please acknowledge yourselves.
Chip Mason.
Connor Daly.
Robin Gillian, you guys are breaking up from me. I don't know if it's everybody else.
Those of us in the room here, Robin? Yes.
You were frozen for a second and you came back and then it got better.
How is it now? We can't tell. We see you live. We see everything looks good on our end.
I can hear you, but it gets just like a little bit garbled. It could just be my end. So if I can't understand, I'll throw something in the chat. It's a little bit better now.
You sound great.
All right, so we'll move on to item 2, which is the agenda. Do we hear a motion to adopt the agenda as proposed?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Wait, you said it. Oh, I got nervous.
I do have one proposed amendment to the agenda. There is an item that came up late in the process. Some of you who have seen the most current version of the agenda will already have seen this on the agenda. Those of you who looked at the agenda that was published as part of the warning for this meeting, it wasn't at the time. So those of you who have seen the agenda, there's an item 4.1, which is regarding a multitasking equipment purchase. So some of you have already seen that on the agenda, but it was not on the agenda. It was presented in advance of the warning period. So I'm formally moving to add the 4.1 item that is on the agenda if you look at it currently. So with that said, all those in favor of adopting the amended agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? We have an agenda. We move on to item 3, which is public forum. I do not see any members of the public. No. Talk about that later. Okay, so I see no members of the public, so we'll close down public forum.
Just a reminder, the chat is part of public comment as well.
Item 4 is the action item that we just added. So I would be willing to entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Finance and City Council the approval of the execution of an agreement to purchase 2 pieces of multitasking equipment from MB companies as outlined in our agenda packet. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
I'll move that. I have one question
Well, procedurally or about the purchase?
about the.
Okay, well, we'll talk about it while it's in this. Okay, so Helen has moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so Chip is second. Discussion is going to be led by Larry.
Dave.
Dave.
Yeah, sure, yeah. So this is actually 2 pieces of the, what we mean by MTEs, it's a multi-tasking equipment. It's the big piece of equipment that has a plow as the first function of snow removal, followed by a rotating broom, followed by an air blast. And this is actually to replace 2 of the aging pieces of equipment that is pushing about 20 years old at this point. It's part of our vehicle replacement plan that we made back in 2023. We actually put an RFP out back in a couple months ago. We had 3 bidders, and MB, we actually put it out for 2 pieces of equipment. MB was the lowest bidder. So, and in fact, their production date was initially 500 days, but since we had awarded them the bid, they actually moved that up for us. And instead of being a couple of years out, it's actually going to be received in August and September of this year. So.
Well, that was kind of my question. I thought for $12,000, one was going to be 500 days and the other was, I think, 100 days. And then, and I was just curious why. I mean, that's 500 days, sounds like a long time for $12,000. I mean, $12,000 is a lot of money, but it just seemed like.
Right. Well, I went with lowest bidder and it turned out that,
That it worked out okay?
yeah.
So is that normally, I mean, delivery date isn't quite as important as the bottom line?
Sometimes, I mean, it is pretty normal right now that these types of pieces of equipment are 500 days or longer, including fire trucks. And in fact, a lot of these companies manufacture fire trucks.
Yeah, okay.
So it really is a weight that we have to understand and utilize, because 500 days is not gonna hit our next winter season for us.
Right.
But like Dave said, when we were able to see that they were actually decrease that number pretty significantly, it was a major impact for us. And MB was the responsible bidder for the type of product that we actually need and what we bid out, not some of these other bids that we saw.
And the price is solid regardless of where the parts come from?
It is, yeah,
So that under the tariff?
correct.
Issues?
These are
Which
set
they
in
actually
stone
always.
bid prices that would be part of the contract once approved through city council.
Well, that's good.
Thankfully, yes,
So this probably would be considerably more
A
expensive.
little bit more.
yes.
And the financing for these, this is snow equipment that qualifies for us to use PFC, passenger facility charges, revenues for. And they're allowed, we're allowed to have so many pieces of equipment to clear our runway. Especially when we have aging equipment that has aged out. So we are going to be paying for this. We're going to work with the clerk treasurer's office to do an equipment lease. We have a few other departments that are also, I think one might be some fire equipment that they're going to be doing early in the year in our new fiscal year that starts July 1st. They will be including this as part of, it will help as far as getting bids back, and they will help manage that. So we will lease this, the MTEs, and we will be leasing it, and we'll pay for it with our revenue streams from the PFC program.
Okay, good.
Which has been approved by FAA.
Which has been approved. It got approved the end of March.
Thank you.
Dave, anything else you want to add before I turn it over to commissioners for additional questions?
No, I think that should do it.
Okay, commissioners, any questions for Dave on this? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? That carries. We move on to item 5, which is the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the contents of the consent agenda as proposed?
So moved?
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, I also do have a modification. There were, if you look at item 10.2, Robin's questions were presented on the minutes, but the answers were not. The responses were not. So I have some proposed additional text that I would like to add in to the end of 10.2. And that would read that the discussion included Leahy BTV is not a state airport, and that the airport is in conversations with the state of Vermont and legislators about aviation education statewide. So that would be the response to the question that Robin had raised on 10.2. So that would be my proposed amendment to the minutes, which are part of the consent agenda. So with that said, all those in favor of adopting the consent agenda as amended, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you for that. We'll move on to item 6, which was the FY26 budget presentation.
Awesome. I'm gonna start it off, and then Marie's gonna get into the details with you all. That would be awesome. Yeah, and we'll share it on the screen as we go forward. So what you see while it's budget season, the whole city is under budget preparation right now, including us as a city department. In fact, next week, we will be the first city department to present our fiscal year 2026 budget to the city council. This is essentially the presentation that the city council, in fact, it really is right now, the presentation that the city council is going to be reviewing next week. And we wanted to make sure that you saw the overview as we went through it. This is also a new format that the city is moving forward with, so that all departments have a very similar style and a very similar format to overview the department as well as, of course, the numbers. The second slide in here is just a high level overview. We talk about this with you, especially the commission, pretty much all year long in various capacities, whether we're talking about specific leases or some of our processes or procedures. But this is a nice big overview of some of the things that we work on as we move forward with both building as well as new initiatives and new concessionaires and other styles. So I'm not going to go through each one of these, but we just wanted to show a quick highlight of what we see on an annual basis. The next slide is a snapshot of our department organizational chart. And you can see it gets a little bit tiny in there, but you can see this is our organizational chart, and this also includes the pillars. You can see these 4 boxes that you see down here, or the pillars of the airport that we went through reorganization a couple of years ago. And you can see the 5 leadership positions in there. Our Deputy Director of Aviation Administration, which I'm happy to report that is going to be posted very soon. Director of Finance, which is Marie, Director of Innovation and Marketing, which is Jeff, Director of Planning, Engineering and Sustainability, Larry, and Deputy Director of Aviation Operations, which is Dave, as well as our Executive Assistant, Jesse, right here. And then you can see the boxes underneath that really spread out into various sectors of the airport: our property sector, our customer experience section, our airfield section, and our operations section. As well as various administration functions, marketing functions, and Larry's engineering department. The whole department.
Can you make it a little bit bigger and see if it still fits? Because you're at like 75%.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Cool.
Better.
Much better. There we go.
There we are. Okay. Good.
Awesome. And again, this is online too, and we'll make sure you have a copy of this too. This is as of this month, April 2025.
It's in the packet.
And it's in the packet. Yeah.
Is there a reason you don't put names in these boxes in case the public wanted to know?
We do have that as well. We have
Okay.
all sorts of different names in there that we can.
I mean, I just think for the public, they might be interested.
Yeah.
Maybe not every single mechanic, but
Right, but the
The lead.
some of it.
yeah, the lead people, the ones who are
Yeah, we can do that.
managing stuff.
That's a good comment.
That is-
Yeah. Some big highlights that we've had. We've had a lot of fun this past year, and a lot of this fun and a lot of these new initiatives and innovative ideas are being moved into, of course, fiscal year 2026. We've hit a lot of really huge milestones in this past year, and the momentum, like I said, really launches us into another really solid fiscal year. But just as some really great highlights, we hit our level 1 carbon accreditation that we presented to you, which was a lot of work and a lot of effort. Now we're getting ready to start into level 2 carbon accreditation, which is really deep diving into our carbon reduction process. We have a new concessionaire. Of course, we negotiated and pushed this out last year, or this current fiscal year, and we're ready to welcome them into next fiscal year, which will also be part of additional revenue sources. Jeff has been able to add quite a bit of things into this list too, including our new sunflower program to help with all-bodied individuals coming into the airport and with whatever programs they might need, using really cool marketing tools and lanyards, which is not just at this airport, but at all airports, or many airports, I should say. More and more every single day. Marie hit, and the whole team hit some credit rating upgrades that we spoke to you about. Lots of community involvement, including our new mascot, all the way to collaboration with South Burlington with a big block party over at Dorset Park or Veterans Park. Lots of communication with both chambers as well as our legislators throughout the state. We introduced New Breeze and Frontier Airlines into the projected growth, as well as our new Aero Pass program, which we haven't dove very specifically yet with the commission. But that will be a new public process that anybody, regardless of if you have an airline ticket or not, will be able to access TSA security and access any of our spaces or restaurants, anything. You do not have to have an airline ticket anymore, once we roll it out publicly.
Can we take questions now? Just
love
the
to.
first one. I'm just curious in terms of the airport carbon accreditation, do the things that like Beta is doing, does that become part of your carbon accreditation, or is that separate?
No, that's all part of it. So we study different levels or different, different levels of carbon, right? Levels, is it called levels?
There's
I'm mixing
three.
up levels. Steps.
Steps, three steps, that's step two.
Step two.
Oh.
So step one is like the things that we can control, the HVAC, the gas in this building, our vehicle fleet. Step two and step three are the things that are outside of our control, like our commercial airline activity and Beta and other tenants. So we put all of that information into our carbon program, not just what they use as ground fleet, but how they fly it and where they fly it. And we study even carbon emissions through aircraft, not just in the vicinity, but all the way to 3,000 feet to the destination airport. So we study a huge part of all aviation at this airport, including tenants like Beta and in reductions like Beta.
Right. I just read something new that they're doing with unleaded gas.
That's right. And that's a big part of it too. It's changing fuel
cool.
sources. We're not legally allowed to ban any sort of fuel at any
We
airport.
went through this, but I just.
Yeah, but there's new programs being instituted, and Beta is being a beta pilot for some of these types of programs, which is great. Of course, Project Next is very much under construction, and that will continue through fiscal year 2026. And then you all should have received invitations, but our Skyline soiree to celebrate aviation and Project Next, which is happening on June 4th, just prior to the fiscal year, but it's another exciting opportunity for us. Just a couple of quick cost savings before we get into the numbers associated with fiscal year 2026. Now we're talking about next year's budget. We're talking about effective July 1st of 2025 through June 30th of 2026, which is our fiscal year 2026. Here's four quick highlights associated with both expenses and revenues. As many budgets look, especially through some of these programs. I think I missed one, but we have been able to reduce some of our line items associated with our expenses, and that's a very important piece of the puzzle. Not just making sure our projections and our increases to revenues, but also looking at where we can save with our expenses. Ray was able to really dive into the numbers and reduce some of our savings, specifically in our repair and maintenance, mostly related to projects finishing up, especially in the parking garage, that we were able to reduce and save, as the slide shows, about $900,000 on this particular line item.
If I can just jump in on
Of
that.
course.
So I know a couple years ago, we were talking about that there was a lot of deferred maintenance that needed to happen. Are we, by making this reduction, saying that we're in good shape on that, or?
We are. We have a really, and we'll get into that specific line. We do see that specific line. But there's still a lot of funding in that particular line.
Okay.
This $900,000 essentially was associated with a project. So year over year, we're not looking to carry over that amount every single year.
No.
Otherwise it'd be unsustainable,
But
but
there's no deferred maintenance that we're sort of not going to do
That's
by
correct.
trying to save this.
That's correct. No.
Okay.
Really important, of course, to manage our expenses, especially when we see increases associated with salaries and many other things. Our total expense on our operating budget only went up 1.2%. So by carefully managing each one of those line items, a 1.2% increase year over year is not easy to get to, especially with inflation and many other things associated with both purchases and small projects. So that's a really good thing. 1.2%, is like the slide said, $270,000. We have a $22 million expense budget. So we're not asking for a large increase at all to our total operating expenses fiscal year 25 to 26.
And that reflects healthcare cost increases. We've locked that in for
That's-
FY 26.
That's correct.
That's great.
All salaries, all benefits. That's right.
Great.
Big revenue growth in there and opportunity in there is of course our parking garage revenue. I've talked about this here and there throughout the year about changes to our parking garage rates. This is where you're going to formally see it for the first time. Through very careful study and the data that we collect, of course, for the last many years, we're now budgeted. So this new budget will include a new daily parking rate of $14 per day. That'll add over $500,000 to our revenues year over year. We think it'll be even more than that, but of course we want to make sure we're projecting conservatively, especially on the revenue piece. And just as a reminder, this is our first parking garage rate change in over 15 years. This is very comparable. In fact, it's still lower than many other comparable airports in our region, especially when you look at the actual location of parking garages adjacent to terminal buildings. $14 per day is extremely reasonable. Once this goes into the budget, that's when we can make those changes. So this won't, I think, till July 1st, and that'll have to go, and of course we'll have a marketing advertising campaign to make sure people know, and signs do change. Passenger growth, we talk about it every commission meeting, but we consistently see high demand, big passenger numbers month over month, year over year, historical numbers, especially through fall areas, and we continue to see that, and we'll have that in a future slide in the director's report as well as usual. So passengers, that drives many of our categories, especially on the revenue side. Airline revenues, common use revenues, which is essentially our terminal revenue sources, concession revenues, all sorts of different things. So making sure that continues to grow and that we work with our airline partners to look at those projections is of course incredibly important to sustain a growing revenue source. And you'll see that we have a 5.6% increase to our projected revenue growth as well. And here's where the real detail and all the hard work that Marie puts into this, and I'll hand it right over to Marie.
Yeah, so as you can see, our total overall, these are our operating revenues. We've got a slide for this, and then our other revenues we include down in another slide. So our airline generated revenues are year over year, it looks like it's a little bit less, which it is as far as budgeted. But some of that is my budget for this year's airline generated revenues is a little higher than what we're actually going to recognize. So that was, it's a little deceiving because they're doing all right. But when when JetBlue left, they were paying, like within the terminal, they were paying for preferred space within the terminal. They were contributing to the ticket counter space and things like that. And while we've been able to luckily attract some new airlines here, but part of our incentive package to offset the cost of them relocating and all the expenses associated with that is we give them a 2 years where we don't charge them for those spaces or the landing fee. So starting in our revenues this year are just not going to be reaching quite as high as I had budgeted. That airline generated revenues includes the terminal rent that they pay, the common use, and the landing fees, even though landing fees are doing well. But all in all, so it looks like a decrease, but it's really not a reflection of where we think we're going to come in next year. Same with our general airport revenues. We have a little bit of a decrease there. I'm trying to remember exactly what's in there. But I guess the highlight and part of that, the parking garage revenues, we have an amended budget for this year of almost 7.2 million. I think we're actually gonna get about 7.6 million in garage revenue for this year. So it's a little tricky when you're comparing amended budget to our new budget because actuals can be a little bit different. But our garage revenues are really doing much better than we had forecasted for. The demand is very high. As anybody who tried to park in the garage over the last 2 weeks may have found. And our rental car revenues also, they are doing very well. So the rental car related revenues for this year is also coming in higher than was budgeted. So the proposed is very much in line with where we think we're going to end up with revenues for this year. QTA revenues, that's really the gas. We charge them they pay directly for their fuel that they use here. So that's level year over year. And our concession related revenues, those are very much you can see that is up 10% is what, again, we're coming in higher for what our budget is for this year. So we were able to propose really what we think we're going to come in at next year. Building ground and rent, we have had some shifting of the tenants we have. So like one of the buildings, Beta bought the building that they own here, or they bought a building from us. They're paying ground rent on that building. So we had a little bit of shift. We may have a little bit lower in terms of the building rent. Not a huge change over what we had budgeted for last year. And the other ones, investment income, these are things that we have a lot of reserved accounts related to debt service or other things. They do earn investment income, and that income goes back in those funds. But I'm not feeling quite as optimistic next year for that revenue. It's higher this year, but I just wanted to kind of hedge a little bit. That grant state operating account, we have it's called an MS4 grant. It's some stormwater grant. So we're going to be able to, that is revenue that's coming in, and we're going to be doing some improvements related to stormwater issues out on the airfield. And so this is kind of a win-win. We got an extra funding source to go out and do that. So that's good.
Robin, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, just a interest question on the parking garage. Since the rental car companies use the parking garage for their storage of the cars, and that's where people pick up the cars, do they pay us like rental lease space? Will they always be there? Could they be moved somewhere else? And does that is that a considerable area where we could be used for the public that we kind of need to get back?
So those are all great questions. I will start by some of our challenges. We only get full in the garage about probably 5 weeks a year. The rest of the year, we're actually not full. So something to keep in mind. Right now, we still we're having to have some closed spots related to some of the construction projects. So we've learned from that, and we're really going to limit the construction of the garage to the summer months when we know we have lower usage of the garage, because that has filled up some of the spaces that we would have liked. And we're talking about other things we can do in the garage that maybe other areas where we can capture more spaces that'll be available to the public. So that's answering kind of what our thinking is, looking at some surface lot and maybe making some improvements. There may be some chance to gate that as part of our longer term plan as well. As far as the car rental companies, our agreement with them allows them to use those spaces on the second floor. And for the privilege of that, they do actually, we are able to capture a portion of their CFC funds that come in each year, specifically for costs that are related to the garage, and specifically to capture portion of the debt that was related in building that whole section. So they do actually pay a portion for those based on the percentage of spaces that they have that was built the last time we added to the garage. They're paying the debt service on that for the ability to use it. So we do get a probably, I'm going to say, well over $600,000 for them to be in the garage for those spaces.
Just to pay for those, they still pay concessions fees, of
yes,
course,
this is This
So this
is
is
outside
multiple-
of, this is just for the privilege of using the garage.
Yeah, so this
specific
is
to that.
multiple millions of dollars a year that they pay us for that, the privilege of the garage.
Yeah.
And it is all public, right? The experience is what we're after, making sure both somebody coming in a private car is parking appropriately and has the space to park appropriate, as well as somebody from the public that is renting a car, making sure that experience is great.
Yeah.
So I'm apprehensive right now about moving or relocating any operation because of the limited amount of weeks a year that we do fill up.
Yeah.
And I would say the rental car companies are the first ones to help us out when we need additional space. They relocate their vehicles out of other lease spaces to allow us to park appropriately with our passengers. I'll get into the parking garage capacity constraints that we have in the director's report. But it is something that we need to talk about and something that we need to grow and analyze and make sure that we're providing a service to our passengers. I know when we analyzed a $14 per day parking rate, we might get some shifts in quantity of parkers with that rate as well. And we know there might be maybe some loss in parkers in there, but not a loss in revenue. And that's
So mostly
also
the revenue is mostly a wash as it gets tied up with the money that we gain from being able to tie it into the grant and the overall payment from the rental car companies anyway.
Yeah, I think the car
What
rentals.
they pay on the debt is what we.
Yeah, for that space, for that physical space, it is 100% a wash on what
That's what
we need to operate that portion of the
Yeah.
garage.
Yeah. Thanks for the translation there.
Let's go to the next slide. So on our operating expenses, I always think this is really interesting to look at, the shifts. Our biggest cost driver is really all the salaries and benefits, but that includes all the benefits and the health, the dental, the overtime, all of the associated things that we have. We did add, I know, and I don't know if you had a chance to see my response
No,
yet, but so we had this budget for salaries includes 2 additional positions over what last year's presentation when we're comparing salaries over salaries. We had already fully implemented our reorganization, so that was already fully included in here a year ago. But we did add, we come to you during the year, we'd added a landside maintenance position mid-year. And then there was a approved, HR had like another approved and that full-time ambassador position that has been on the books, but really hadn't been funding as part of our annual thing, but we are funding that. So that was an existing position that we're funding. So there's 2 additional positions, but other than that, it really is the cost, as everybody would probably is seen across all businesses. Cost of healthcare continues to be probably the largest single driver that's contributing to this overall expense that you're seeing in that right there.
Yeah, that's exciting. Healthcare, you have step increases, you have percentage increases on the contractual.
Yeah, we have a
union
3%
contract
COLA
increases.
increase that is part of the contractual. And as long as somebody hasn't been up to this 15 years, you get like capped at you don't get any more step increases, but every employee until they hit that 15 years on the step increase, they get an annual step increase. So there's contractual other things per the union that go up a little bit each year as well. So all of that factors into that cost. So that's a big, that's when you look at all of those numbers on down to that total, that's kind of our biggest thing, but it's, we feel like our folks work really hard and they're willing to help with all of the snow and painting and all of the things that we do year round, our maintenance crew and things like that. So we do a lot with the number of FTEs that we have. And so I think this is a very necessary thing.
What was the percentage increase in healthcare?
9%. Yeah, so what
That's a
that,
big driver.
we are part of a shared pool that the city coordinates and negotiates all of those rates. They go out periodically and they get do RFPs, and right now Cigna is our healthcare provider, and I think Delta Dental. So the city coordinates all of that, but then they have to work with Cigna annually, and then they work to roll out. So yeah, we had a 9% increase in employee benefits overall. So that was that was kind of a big hit. But yeah, so that's the biggest one we have. You will see that reduction in repair and maintenance account, but we have been, if you look back 3 years ago, we've been much higher in there, predominantly because we've been doing some very large projects. We are continuing, we do have in there some known projects, always having things that like, it's time to do X, Y, Z. So we have a lot of, some of them might be 50,000 or 100,000, but we also have some projects that we have to continue doing and keep our facilities up. We have a lot of facilities. Other things that.
Just a second, Connor, you had a question or comment?
Oh, no. Yeah, I just had a quick question about like the last several years of like average, like the healthcare increases. Not a criticism, just curious about like how the 9% compares to like the last several years, because yeah, I gotta be honest, like 9% seems a little low given kind of the state context right now. So
Yeah, Connor, I didn't look at that compared to last year. So that would be, yeah, but I could certainly very easily pull out.
that's a pure academic question, not a
Yeah.
not probing. So thank you.
Right, no, and I think it's a really good one, but I'm sure that all
Curious, yeah.
businesses are experiencing that. I think the city does a lot to keep their costs down because they're such a large organization, but they're still feeling the effects of that. We had a lot of.
Oh, it looks like Chip has a question.
Oh,
Sorry.
Chip,
Has
yes.
a question too.
I also have an academic question. Marie, can you explain? I don't know. I'm not familiar with the 62 or 6,200 accounts. What is that?
My 6,200 accounts, I have it right here. So it's dues and subscriptions, it's custodial supplies, small tools and equipment, oil, grease, and antifreeze, uniforms and laundering of those uniforms, and medical other supplies. And then we have another one, we have like a discretionary, that's a smaller account out of all of that. But yeah, so those are all of those things we are going up. Yeah, our dues and subscriptions are going up, probably the most, small tools and equipment. So we have I have a fair number of requests from all of the managers at every level, including the leadership team, provided me with lists of equipment that they need. So there might be some small ticket things that are not really capital, something we gotta go out and buy, like not a new vehicle, but it might be like, I need a new plow on my, something, or some other equipment that would help them do their job better. Or replacing an aging thing. So these are things that are too small to meet the threshold of capital, but we do have pieces, but that's $150,000 out of that. So it's fairly small. That answer your question?
Yes, thank you for that explanation.
Yeah, so you can see the things, a lot of them I don't necessarily have some of them I don't have a whole lot of control. We are doing our best to reduce costs and utilities, and then doing improvements and other things, looking at it, putting energy efficient lighting in the garage and things like that. So hopefully over time we will see some reduction. But these are my best estimates based on what I'm seeing this year, and of course accounting for some increases. Other big ones that we have, is I kind of have a placeholder. I don't actually have a final number for indirect fees from the city, but it's a placeholder. And then airport security, we're still working with the police department. It's a bit of a placeholder, but I made some assumption. But these are some of our biggest costs. We don't have a lot of control. Maintenance contracts, we have a lot of maintenance contracts. So things that you see in here are elevators, our escalators, our HVAC systems. We have a whole host of things that come in. Also, as part of that would be any repairs on that. We have a lot of things that end up needing, they're big ticket items that cost money when they break.
Yeah. Robin, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just curious, like when we have to do maintenance to the outside of buildings we own, like if it was Burlington Technical Center, BFA, or one of the ones at Beta Leases, where does that maintenance live in our budget?
That would be under repairs and maintenance. So that repair and maintenance account. So
Yep.
if I have to paint the outside of the building, like I know I plan to do a little painting over at building 3060.
Yep.
So that's where I've included it. If it is more on the property, then that would be under property repairs. So and that.
And it also depends too on the lease, of course, right?
Yeah.
So some of our
Right.
leases require some of the tenants to maintain that type of space. Others, of course, don't.
Yeah, and that maintenance contract line item includes property repairs, custodial contract, which is the biggest portion actually out of that contract. Because we have cleaning staff that is here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
So it seems like that's kind of a little bit hard year to year to a little bit forecast, right? Because we have a 21% difference. It's one of the, a little bit higher on our list here from last year to this year. But then next year it might be quite a bit lower. Just kind of depends on which big items come up that year, right?
It does, and I know there will be things that come up that I am unaware of today that all of us are unaware of, and it could, something could happen. We have a lot of land, we have a lot of property, and things happen all the time. But yeah, I try to. We've been pretty fortunate that by and large we've been able to shift monies around or increase accounts if we need to if something pops up that is unexpected.
Go ahead, Helen.
Other wishes, probably Nick can answer it the best in terms of the real estate taxes. We have an agreement with the city of South Burlington, and that's coming to an end soon, isn't it?
I think
it's like 2028.
I think it was
27.
2020. Yeah, I think it's coming up. So
Yeah.
we
We have a couple
will
of
need
years,
to.
and we have had conversations with the city leadership about that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious. It's just something that was good.
It's always there, yeah. That's right. That's exactly right.
Because it could.
Good, go ahead, Chip.
I'm not sure whether this is a Nick or Marie question, but given the fiscal challenges the city at large is facing, do you anticipate, and I know this is your proposed budget, but are there any potential impacts of the city's challenges that may work their way into your proposed budget?
Well, we're an enterprise fund, so
That's
I
okay.
mean, the shorter answer is no, because
Great. Well, you just answered the question. I was trying to remember back from my city council days and couldn't remember. So, okay, that's what.
Yeah, we are
zero
not.
impact, Chip, but there's obviously.
Thank heavens.
Yeah, thank heavens, and we of course assist where we can as far as. When we can, but yeah, our budget numbers really don't impact theirs or ours, except for in that indirect fee line item and maybe some contractual items like airport, police department contracts. But those are all services that we pay for,
Right.
Not necessarily any impact because of the conversations downtown.
Right, and we're not allowed to, we have to justify all of our costs. So we are allowed to share in healthcare where they negotiate because it's a much beneficial to us to have a bigger number of employees, things like that. So we get savings that get passed on to us because of the size of the city. They have a little bit more negotiating power than we would if we were just doing it as ourselves. However, we're not allowed to take our revenues and just pay them for things that don't make sense. I mean, everything has to be justified, and we have very, very in-depth conversations with them about that and look at the detail in the backup for any charges that they're sending to us. So that is what we do on our side.
Thank you.
All right, so I wanted to show, we have other revenues that come in, and of course we have other non-operating expenses. So this is our non-operating revenues, non-operating expenses, and we have a new category, which we're gonna call use of fund balance. We are finishing up, we're gonna use the remaining of the ARPA money in early, probably July and August. We're gonna use that in 2026. So that's gonna be all done, everything we had. So that made this year, obviously we've been very fortunate that we were able to extend that out and really use it over the 4 years. So we had quite a difference in the revenues that we could intend and plan on for any changes. As you can see there, we are, We're going from what we budgeted last year, but last year number also included that ARPA number, so still quite a difference. What we have going forward, our PFCs are restricted. We talk about how we're able to use them. We are able to use about $1 million on our debt service annually every year. We're able to use them for our local shares, which we got approved. We're able to use them on equipment. So we always talk about that. And I have some PFC interests that I have budgeted for on that bank account, and that all are restricted. Now, on the non-operating expenses, we have our debt service, which is, of course, we haven't done any new borrowings or any new refinancing, so it is pretty much even par across the board. Our capital asset leases, I have a placeholder in it for these upcoming leases that we're asking you to approve. That is all going to be covered by PFCs. So any additional leases that you see in there are going to be covered by PFCs. We do have a capital lease there that's included in the QTA as well in that number. That is every year until it's paid off, but that is paid for by dedicated CFC numbers. And our interfund transfer, I'll talk a little bit about what that is. So that is our auditors have our budget. We have local shares that we do on our AIP grants, and predominantly in the past, that was mostly what it was year over year. And then we get reimbursed under the PFCs for those local shares. However, this year we did include some. It is going up quite. It went up last year, went up this year because we have some portions of this next project that we're doing. And the portions of the third floor, which is going to be administrative space, is not going to be covered by any of the grants. And there are some, the FAA has us required, they say, well, some of the design work that you did is also for some portion. So there's a bit of this allocation that goes on as part of that. And we've included what we think is going to be coming out this year. That's kind of got two big things in there. That is the local share, which I can cover with PFCs, but then there's some portion of it that is our own construction that we're doing. So in recognizing that we're building this wonderful new asset and some of it is going to be funded by the airport, it really is not something you're funding. It's not something that you're funding out of 1 year's revenues that are coming in. It's something that we know that is coming from accumulated revenues that we've had. And we have talked a little bit about whether or not we could borrow a little bit to do it. It's not a terribly huge amount of money, but it is still money. And so we're looking at some additional options, but we're not going to do any long-term borrowing or revenue bonds or things like that. It's not really that as big of a project. So I have on the bottom of this green slide, the green side, this use of fund balance on capital infrastructure projects. I'm anticipating about $2 million or so that we know we're going to be using really accumulated monies that we have toward that construction of that project. And I just wanted to kind of show, how do you balance this? You're doing all of these different things. You got all your operating and you have some capital things. So that is the intent of that. So you want, okay, so we have a slide here that talks about maybe any areas of concern, threats, and some opportunities. We are constantly monitoring what's going on in the federal landscape here. We have not seen any disruption to what we do here. We haven't heard any or anything on our grants. We haven't had any interruption of reimbursements or slowdown in any of that. So, but we monitor it, to make sure, because there's a lot of chatter out there. So we just make sure on the cash flow. That's one thing we always have to think about. The airline volatility. It's always a conversation, right? And changes to the airline industry. I think we saw with the pandemic how it had such an impact. So, we monitor it. It's not necessarily within our control, but we do like to be as educated as we can on these things. And of course, we have noticed here in our garage, we've noticed less Canadian travelers. You wouldn't have known that last week. We were parking cars wherever we could. So we're not really seeing it as a reduction of revenues. Like, it really isn't affecting the car rental revenues because they don't tend to come down and they're not coming in here landing and renting a car. We really haven't, our garage revenues have been best ever. Each month is better than it's ever been. So we haven't seen a direct impact. There might be some slight, but it hasn't affected us in a negative way. However, opportunities. So we are always looking and at any spaces that they become available to add new lease spaces, or rent in existing spaces. If there's going to be turnover, we're always looking for that. New leases are being developed for new hangars and tenants. So those are in the works. And we're also looking at new garage service lot opportunities because we realize we have a need to increase. And we're going to be looking at increasing our revenue control with replacing our parking garage system. So we're talking about that and how to do that smartly and increasing parking.
Is there capacity for the existing parking garage to go up another level? Was it built to do more?
No,
So on the south
but
end,
there always is, as long as you have the money to do it. It's very, very expensive to build on top of that garage, because it was not designed for the
Okay.
weight capacity.
the south end also is impacted by the radar, which.
Oh,
Being bumped up.
right, sure.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. That side of blindness there.
It's pretty up higher than that.
So just to wrap it up, unless you want to take the question.
Yeah, Connor, do you have a comment?
I just had a quick question around actually like to Helen's point, like is there any capacity for like just across the street for any new parking like structure, or is that not on the table down? Oh, sorry, did I walk into it?
You'll have to go through South Burlington for that one. And I'm guessing no. Just
Today, the answer is no. There'd be.
Just curious.
There needs to be a larger conversation associated with the land use and the zones in that particular space, which the airport is not asking for. There are other surface lot opportunities that we can add access control and revenue control to make sure that our parking lots and our surface lots can have overflow when the times are needed. Right now, we don't have that. We have one exterior surface lot that people can actually pay for parking. The rest of them do not. So we're looking at rearranging things, adding new gates to some of our surface lots and making sure that during those 5 weeks, we can expand when we need to.
Okay, thanks. Sorry if I missed that conversation earlier, or if that was a previous
No, you
conversation.
didn't. No, that was a good
Okay.
question. And just to wrap it all up, like we said, a very nominal increase to the operating expenses, 1.2%, while we continue to see a conservative revenue increase of 5.6%, which is fantastic. That does allow us to hit our bond covenants of 1.25 debt ratio as well, which is fantastic, of course. Not just fantastic, but required, of course. We talked about this already, but our largest budgeted expense is, of course, the salaries and benefits, which is at that almost 10%. Our staffing from fiscal year 25 to 26 is maintained at its current levels. I am still looking at potentially adding additional staff to certain sectors of the airport based on operational needs, but that'll come to you later on in the fiscal year if we need it. And of course, we're building one of the, if not the largest project in the history of this airport, especially with our terminal building. We're doing that without revenue bonds. We're doing a $65 million project. There are additional expenses associated with that, and of course, long-term expenses to maintain and to operate and the utilities costs, and of course the staff. It takes more time to maintain some of these additional spaces. New space is great, especially when you don't have to maintain a 20 to 30 to 40 to some of our buildings are older than that, 50 plus years. So that's also a great thing for us, but we're building big and we're using all internal funds to make sure our budget is maintained to support, of course, these long-term investments. Passenger growth, we all say at every single meeting, we're doing really great. Our projections are really great. The last slide is a thank you slide, but after this is appendix in there, which I'm not going to get into because you've seen these before. It's also part of my director's report, talking about all of the amazing things that we're doing, the scheduled seat capacity growth, the landing capacity projections, which are increasing, as well as a really great passenger statistic number. This actually needs to be adjusted a little bit. Yeah, we're looking at a very strong passenger growth, which of course is the bottom line for us. We operate a runway, and we walk from that runway, we operate all the way into the terminal, into concessions and parking garages, land, and our amazing staff that make this happen. So we have a really, really solid fiscal year 2026 proposed budget that we just presented, and we're excited to move into another solid year.
How much time have they given you to present this?
Less minutes.
Less than 15 minutes,
Including questions?
correct?
Well,
Yeah. But it's not the end. This is one presentation. This next week is not going to be the approval week, so it'll go through various iterations and then final approvals with city council. Yep.
good luck. Talk fast. Yeah, well, there's a lot of good information.
There's a lot of good information and a lot of good questions that came from
Yeah,
it too.
sure.
In fact, I was
And
just
you have
whispering to
12
Jesse.
People asking questions.
Yeah, that from this meeting, we're gonna update a couple of slides based on the conversation too, which is great.
All right, commissioners, any last thoughts on the budget presentation? Well, it's pretty solid to me.
Yeah, it's
Let's
great.
move on to item 7, which is construction update. Larry.
All right, I'll try to be quick. First of all, the expansion joint, fix in the garage is nearing completion. We should be done over the next couple of months. We did work through the winter. And it did impact the garage, but at least it'll be done and we can move on to other improvements. The environmental assessment that's taken quite a while to get done is finally moved to its last stage of legal review with the FAA for the obstruction clearing of runways 15 and 33. Once that's completed, we'll look at easements and whether we need easements to clear some of the areas that need to be cut. The glycol system upgrade that we've been talking about, we had a interim meeting with Heritage Flight because they do the de-icing of the aircraft. That went well, a lot of great input from them. We anticipate the final report over the next couple months, in which will turn into scoping and a federal AIP project to potentially, hopefully recycle that collected glycol. Project Next, I'm sure Nick always reports on this in his report, but it's going well. We just moved forward with grant 3, which grant applications went in yesterday, which is a big relief. Which includes the boarding bridges and the second floor renovation to include demolition, ceilings, and drywall. So that'll get that portion of that whole quarter opened up. Of course, when we come to October, when the new federal fiscal year starts, we're going to regroup with everything we have moving from change orders to other grants we received and kind of inventory where we're at, and then determine if we have to apply for any more grants to get this project done. Maybe a little bit, we might have to do some apron work, but we're gonna be fairly close and we'll be in a good place to make that decision by October, so we can finalize any needs to complete that project with respect to the dollars needed to finish that project. Runway 1533, we've been gearing up for this for the last year. We're getting close to working every night to get that project done starting June 1st. Nick touched on the sustainability, so that we're moving forward that with respect to on-site investigation and setting our goals in the next phase of that. We taxiway Charlie Golf rehabilitation. The good news here is the low bid was Pike Industries at $2.6 million. That was $1.4 million under the engineer's estimate and about $700,000 less than the other bidder. The really good, the news is that we will not need discretionary to help pay for that the FAA was anticipating, so they could put that to other use that was necessary. and it's $900,000 less than our entitlement, which we'll be able to move into next year to do other needed projects. So it would have been nice to grab that $900,000 this year, but we've got enough going on. We're gonna utilize that next year. So that's a huge thing. And we never, it's good competition. That was good competition best we've seen. So
Does that $900,000 next year have to continue to be directed at the maintenance of the runway, or is it just
No.
whatever?
it's
So if
entitled.
you need it for next or?
Correct. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep, and
Yeah.
and most likely that's what it's gonna be used for, not necessarily the building, but more terminal renovations. Because you can't use these types of monies for maintenance, it has to go towards a capital project, we're not eligible for maintenance grants.
And discretionary, terminal is very low on the priority list for discretionary money. So that's why we've been taking advantage of the last several years of these other grant options that we've been successful in getting.
Without them, there's no way we would have gotten grants for terminal work.
Yeah.
All of these,
Yeah.
they're so low on the list, we would have been outcompeted with every airport in the country.
Yeah.
Because discretionary shared across the country.
So we get about 3.6 million in entitlement, so this will add 900,000 to that for
Great.
next year. So, the arrestor cable project will go on, with, the runway 1533 project. We've signed a contract, or we haven't signed the contract yet with ECI because we're waiting on the final, contract to come back from the Air Guard that they're gonna fully reimburse us, which should be by the end of next week. I found out today, so we'll finish that up. And I guess that's it, unless anybody has any questions.
All right, commissioners, anything for Larry? Thank you, Larry. Move on to item 8. Start with noise data, which is also Larry.
Okay, the sound and noise update report, okay, we just signed some changes to phases 1 and phase 2 of the residential sound installation program to wrap that up and close those projects out. The first one has to be closed out by fall due to the 4-year requirement for closing out projects. I provided the update with regard to phase 3, the 52 houses that are in order to be constructed. We have 21 near some of them near completion but under construction or some sort of construction, with 31 remaining from that. Phase 4 will start right when those are finished, which is 16 more homes. So there's no real update on that. Phase 5, applied for a grant yesterday for phase 5, which includes only 6 units for construction because of the setback we had with the acoustical change and the window manufacturer going bankrupt. However, that's 6 more units that we can get done, and then also more outreach and get all the acoustical. There's money in this grant that will allow us to do a whole bunch of acoustical testing so we don't get behind because of that. So that's in that grant.
Are you aware of any of the products that they depend on coming from Canada, like wood or windows or?
Very small things, but all of our grants are Buy America requirements.
Oh, so.
Yeah, so most items except for I would say like HVAC items are very
Okay,
technology driven items, yeah.
So that shouldn't increase the cost necessarily.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the same with
Delay.
Project Next, everything's by American, so we have to go through that whole process. So, so the other final news is, we applied only for 3 grants this year. I just looked back 3 years. We'd applied for 7 or more for each of the last 3 years. 3 grants this year totaling federal dollars of about 12 million. Which is less than half of what we've done every year since in the last 8 years. About 20% of what we did last year, but we still have plenty.
Wait till what we do next year.
Yeah, and then there's next year, so. So that's all I have.
Any questions for Larry? All right, move on to item 8.2, which is noise comments. Jesse.
Wanna pull it up and show the screen?
I'm sorry, no.
Do the whole screen. Oh, it's a note.
There should be good. Maybe just close the tools over there. There you go.
So at the last meeting, there was a request to report on the noise comments data that we've received, so that's what this is. So we've broken it up into comments, the first slide, sorry, is comments by aircraft. Sure if the full screen is showing with this down here. There we go. So you can see the most comments were about military planes, followed by jets. Or not followed by jets,
Not specified.
followed by not specified, and then jets.
And this is for,
Yes, this data is from all the way back to June 1st of 2021 to April 30th, today, 2025. A total of 825 comments going back 4 years. Comments by town. So, Robin, go ahead.
So, given that that was right around when we got the F-35s, can we tell, is it broken up by year? Or just the
It will
whole 4
be-
years kind of chunked together?
One of the last slides is broken up by month, going back all the way to June of 2021.
Okay, so that'll give us a little bit of a look back. I would expect that we would have gotten the most in 2021. But okay, continue, thanks.
And just a comment on this too, this is just the organization of the raw data. So some of it is gonna seem a little odd. I will share the data point of a Zeppelin or blimp. The comment was, why don't we have a blimp?
Why don't we have a limp?
Yes.
we get some very strange comments in this system.
Just sort
I
of
will say
We
that
need
was
a
my
big
favorite.
stadium.
Heather to next.
Yes. And then broken up by the towns that were reported in the comments. And again, this is exactly what was in the data set, so.
We don't know if it's actually true or not. right?
Yes.
This is just what
It's self-reported.
self-input, that's right.
Self-reported, if somebody put an error or if there was a autofill somewhere
Bowmanville,
else.
Ontario.
But this does not mean that the sound occurred in these areas necessarily, just where people submitted that they were. And you can see 300, I have it broken up later, in the next slide, I think, in just the numbers itself, so that'll be a little easier to see. But 386 comments in Burlington, followed by 148 in, I believe that's South Burlington, and then Colchester. So you can see this is the whole data set from the previous two slides, total 825 comments.
So if the comment is not specified, what is the comment, something like the airport's too noisy?
No,
Thank you.
they left blank where they could write in what kind of aircraft they're reporting. and commenting
I
on.
see.
So when I pull the whole data set, it's just left blank. Oftentimes by reading the comment, if it's not specified, it then is clear what they're reporting on, if they haven't chosen to specify it.
And then do you fill that in sort of for them?
For this data set, no, this is
Okay.
just the raw data
Okay.
organized.
What is interesting, so
Like if someone's complaining about the F-35, but they don't fill in the box
Yeah.
where they could,
don't, we
it's
don't,
gonna show it's not specified.
we don't change any of the data because we're not 100% sure unless it's a specific written comment of
Right.
what they're talking about, but we wouldn't change that not specified section. What is really cool though in this program is this is not just a comment program. This is also associated with, of course, our noise monitors in the field. So when somebody does comment and if they put a relatively close date in time when they experienced it, the system will correlate it to an actual radar track data. So we can see some of, not all of them, but some of them, we can see that an aircraft did take off and their comment was right next to it. And we can show them, you can actually see it as a commenter, that this may have been American Airlines flight 2732 or something like that, to give a reference of what it was, including height of aircraft and lateral distance between your place of hearing this, the aircraft and the actual aircraft itself. It's pretty amazing what it can see. Of course, not 100% accurate, and not every commenter puts the exact time. You might put the comment in a couple hours later, but not change the time of when the event actually occurred.
And I would also point out, unknown means they chose to put, I do not know what aircraft, and not specify this even in blank. And again, the comments by town, the town they're in is self-reported. And then this is, I can zoom in a little bit if that would be helpful. This is per month, when all of the comments came in. So down at the bottom, I'll scroll up and then scroll back. Okay. You can see most of the comments did come in between October of 21 and April of 23. And it has consistently received fewer comments per month than we used to. And some statistics of note, 72% of the comments came from the same 5 individuals. 71% of people who did comment only submitted 1 comment. And the top 5 commenters provided 591 out of the total 825 comments.
One of the things that you're going to see on this chart, though, is that the time frame that most of the F-35s were gone from Vermont is also the time frame that you have the least amount of comments. So like this last year when they left, they were gone for like, I don't remember how long, but quite a while. The comments are going to go down because even if we have soirees, we don't have nearly as many happening.
That's a good point, yeah. So it's not like people are like, I don't need to complain anymore. There isn't anything to complain about for that period of time.
Right. It's a significant decrease in military traffic.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure. I don't know about that because when the aircraft do come back, the number of complaints don't go up. Right. We're seeing the trend line of going down, which I don't know if there's a correlation of commenters or not, because time has gone on. Maybe commenters aren't commenting as much because they don't want to, or different changes. Yeah, and we're not the only one to accept comments. That's an important piece of the puzzle here.
Sure.
Oh, can it still hear us?
Can you guys hear us?
Yes.
Okay. We've also added to our website since we started this program that military comments or military jet complaints or comments it can also be communicated directly to the Vermont Air National Guard. So they also receive comments as well.
And we don't add that.
And that is not added to that. Yep. Are we still live recording? Okay.
Yeah, it hasn't said that it's not recording the audio. One thing I think that is also a factor in this, I didn't put this number on here, but the top commenter commented 330 times. One person, and has not commented in a very long time. And I think if I go back and look at the data, this time where it goes down is probably when they tapered off. So it would be interesting to look at the data set, perhaps with the exception of that individual, and see maybe what the other data is to see if that's maybe an outlier. Let's use it.
Yeah, you could look at like the commenters who only commented once, or maybe twice, what their situation looks like.
Yeah,
And-
look at the frequency.
And some of these comments are really helpful.
Mhm.
They do show an anomaly in a flight pattern or some low-level aircraft of some sort that we can then use that data and communicate to air traffic control and say, hey, why did this plane take off left instead of right today? And have those types of conversations. We don't do that very often, but there have been circumstances where we brought this up and then air traffic can review their actual radar, which of course is more accurate compared to some of the information that we receive. So there are some very helpful comments on here as well.
Okay, go ahead.
Just quickly, with whom is this, are these comment, or this data and this chart being shared other than with this board? And then sort of a related follow-up question, I don't recall, and maybe Nick can refresh my recollection. Are we doing this or is the airport doing this because of either an agreement or a concession? Like, I'm just, and for how long have we sort of agreed, seeing where the trend is going, continue this collection?
Yeah, so we are only sharing this with the airport commission. However, every now and again, we will share it with some of our sound committees or other communities, community presentations, but it has been a little while. We do post this not just to commission civic clerks websites, but we will post this also to our maketv.com, so it's available to the public.
Okay.
We do not have any particular agreement except for the noise monitors themselves. Those monitors were funded with federal funds, and there are certain obligations to make sure that we maintain those monitors for a certain period of time. There are not just physical maintenance costs, but there's also subscriptions associated with maintaining that service. That includes this commenter website and the collection of this data. It is expensive. It is $50,000-ish a year that we pay in computer subscription that is not eligible for federal funding. So that is incorporated in the operating budget that we presented earlier. There's no time limit, no agreement, no obligation, except for making sure we maintain the federally funded infrastructure for a certain amount of time, which I think is 5 years or 10 years. I think the infrastructure is 10, yeah.
And I think we might want to clarify too, unless there's some, wherever this is incorrect. The noise monitor data is posted on the website, not the noise comments data.
Understood. So Nick, was this directed by the commission at some point in time, or was this a decision by the director to just move in this direction? I mean, I'm not challenging it, I'm just trying to
No,
understand.
good question. So as part of our 2020 noise compatibility program update, our noise compatibility program essentially specified both operational changes to flight patterns and things like that to address noise, but also that document is how we fund residential sound insulation and all of our mitigation efforts. As part of that document, which was a community effort, we had sound committees, we had a technical advisory committee, we had presentations to the airport commission at that time. That document was specified to include a noise monitoring and comment application, but no specific period of time. So that's how we were able to fund it through community involvement and community involvement and public input.
Thank you.
That was science.
All right, anything else for Jesse? With Jesse, we can move on to item 9, which is the financial update from Marie.
Very good. So I think I'll give you an abbreviated version tonight because I do have the write-up in here. And my apologies, because I think I was having some difficulties with my Adobe software, and I inadvertently have left off the P&L. So all of our revenue expenses, I don't think it is included in the packet. So things are continuing. The highlights are it's continuing to go well. And as expected, our revenues, we have some very strong points with some of the revenues, which is always great news. And we're managing our expenses. So our revenues are about 75% of what we budgeted. Our expenses are 70% of what we budgeted. So, you know, we're feeling pretty good about the direction that's going in. Our cash was about $4 million at the end of March. And so I guess I will entertain any questions on the March P&L, Nick. Should I just make that available if somebody would like to see it, or we'll just we'll talk about it next month?
We can add it to the agenda and then, or add it to the document.
Just because I like the detail to be available, so if anybody ever wants to look at that or have any questions, that they're free to do so.
All right, thank you, Marie. Any questions for Marie? All right, we'll move on. It's next up is item 10. This is the director's report. It's from Nick.
All right, I got a quick director's report for you. Jesse's gonna pull it up real quick. I'm gonna start with Project Next, as I usually do. Got a couple pictures in the on the posted presentation. These are really exciting pictures to me. It doesn't look like much right now, but they're we all can start visualizing really what this space is going to be looking like. Jeff and his team do force me to do videos updates as well. I do like it. But there's some cool updates that him and his team are doing, which is really fun to show video updates of the project every week or two. Lots of great progress happening. These pictures I think are really important because that's essentially all the steel that's going into this building. We're pretty much all done with the steel work. The rest is all mass timber, and that's going to be delivered really soon and start getting installed throughout the month of May, which is I cannot wait. It's really exciting.
Yeah.
Oops. Still lots of progress with our state legislators. We recently had a coffee hour at the State House that we're able to host a little bit of a breakfast and coffee. And the team and I were able to spend some time with more legislators to talk about the airport and how exciting some of our future is. This is in an effort to make sure that our door is open, and we just wanted to make sure more communication was with our state legislators, especially when they have challenging conversations all across the state, especially at the State House. So we're really excited and happy to share our amazing progress out here.
Did they have any concerns that they articulated?
Nothing. We haven't really heard anything.
I think so.
And we've had, I don't know, half a dozen committee presentations, one-on-one meetings.
Good.
We've had lots of different things
Nice.
throughout the last couple of months. Recently, we also had what's called a Real ID press conference. So if you look at just your Vermont driver's license, if you don't have a star in the corner of your driver's license, starting May 7th, you need to have a Real ID. This image is of the DMV commissioner of the state of Vermont, myself, as well as a representative of the Department of Homeland Security talking about the importance of Real ID and what it means, but also the deadline to make sure you have a Real ID, not just in the state of Vermont, but wherever you travel in the United States, you need that, which does include a passport. May 7th is the deadline. The really cool thing about this is the state of Vermont has about a 98% Real ID compliance right now. So we're one of a very few states that is doing really well. Maine, for example, they're in the 20% that don't have Real ID. So really, there's not going to be too much of an impact. But if you don't have Real ID, prepare for extra time at that TSA checkpoint, including you may not be allowed to fly. So it's really important to have that Real ID. We talked a lot about parking garage. But you know, we had a really amazing and I would say successful vacation spring break for our school districts around the area, and that certainly showed in our parking garage with it filling up very quickly the Thursday, Friday prior to the holiday. But it also left very quickly once kids were back in school. We learned a lot over the last couple of months, including some of our February vacation. We're using a lot more of our surface lots and using some creativity, partnering with some of our hotel companies to use some of their parking lots and shuttle folks back and forth. And our tenants have been absolutely outstanding to help really make sure that the experience goes towards what all of our customers really needed and making sure people have parking. We have a couple of upcoming events throughout the month of May, but also just a quick highlight through the June time period. Next week, next Mondays, we will be in front of the South Burlington City Council, presenting highlights to the airport, including our sustainability program, our noise program, some of those updates. This was at the request of the city manager as well as some of the city councilors, which is going to be a really nice day or a nice presentation to update the council on. Same day, May 5th, Monday is Green Up Day, and we've had a tradition over the last 3 or 4 years, that every day we bring our whole team and we walk our entire airport. We'll have a couple of groups, some will be out on the airfield, some will be, starting at this terminal working southbound, vice versa. And we have a really cool celebration and a little bit of food to help clean up our space in our airport, and we'll be doing that on Monday. May 30th, end of the month, we have a brand new Charleston flight. Jeff and I and Alex, part of Jeff's team, will be flying down to Charleston. We'll be meeting with the Charleston airport to also host a little bit of an event down there. And then, of course, have a really cool celebration here to introduce our new inaugural flight to Charleston, South Carolina with Breeze Airways, starting May 30th. June 4th, that's our soiree, I like that word, to celebrate not just our terminal building, but aviation in Vermont. So keep an eye out, and more info will come. You've already gotten some info already, but more to come. Jeff and I are also back on the road June 9th through the 11th. This is our Jumpstart conference, where we're going to be meeting with about a dozen airlines, both new and our existing airlines here, to make sure that we're growing healthy. Hopefully introduce new airlines and talk to new airlines about awesome opportunities at Lady BTV. Some of the team, June 8th through the 10th, I think Larry, Dave, and Marie are also on the road representing the airport at the American Association of Airport Executives, and this is in Atlanta, Georgia, right? Yeah. At an annual conference with this AAA, as we call it, the AAA group. And then Dave's getting very excited for our annual FAA inspection. What's really cool about that, and of course we'll update you at the next convention meeting prior and post the inspection. Dave and his team and the whole maintenance team do such an outstanding job. It makes my job easy. It's such a breeze. There's lots of work goes into it pre, during, and post, but yeah. And then when we talk about passengers, again, another update for you. We're looking at this blue dashed line here. That's our projected number of passengers throughout the rest of the calendar year. Sorry, seats, not passengers. Right now, we're projecting about 935,000 scheduled seat departures from this airport this calendar year. Some does include actual numbers, and some of it is, of course, projections. So 935,000 seats. One thing that we're highlighting as we go through the seats is back in 2008, an average seat on a flight. The average number of seats on a flight was around 69 per flight. Today, actually, I just redid this after a conversation with Tim. 2024, last year we hit 91. Now we're at 92 average seats per flight. So indicating that the flights are, of course, getting larger. And we're still hitting some really great load factors, especially when you compare it to 2008. Even though we had more seats that year, which was our highest year, 2008, 2009, we only hit 75% load factors. We're only filling 75% of about 1 million seats, which was about 750,000 passengers. We're hitting over that, and yeah, slightly less seats, but now that our projected 2025 seats are 935. We're looking at a really healthy final number of passengers. Right now, our projections are really between 720 to 730,000 projected passengers if we hit 80% load factor. So it's slightly lower load factors than historically what we hit both in 2024 and 2025. So we're looking very, very positive on the number of seats. And again, really good historical numbers for our fall season. We're of course still months and months away, but this generally doesn't change too much, obviously, the closer that we get. And then the last slide here is just the number of actual departures from the airport. This slide's a little harder to read as I mentioned before on the graph because it doesn't show cyclical or even seasonal kind of a good picture there. But the chart over on the left really does show that we have over 10,000 departures. These are only airline departures. All of this is only airline commercial departures. So we're looking very, very, very healthy on the number of seats. Almost 1,000 more departures than we had last year, and 2,000 over last year. We're looking really, really healthy. Even 2019, we had almost 12,000, but we're still looking at higher number of passengers because we have more seats on those planes. And that's all I have for you for the director's report.
So I just have a question. What is the capacity? And how many more flights and how many more airlines?
Yeah.
Can we manage?
Yeah. Throughout the day, we're very far away from our capacity. Our gates and our layout right now really has a lot of opportunity for growth in there. At night, we fill every single one of our gates. That doesn't mean we don't have alternative parking positions for our airlines. We have what we call remain overnight parking locations, and then they tow those planes to the terminal at maybe an alternate time for departure. Our capacity is large. When we did our master plan to design this terminal to get to a larger capacity, we were very far away. In fact, I don't recall offhand, but we can get those numbers that are associated with how are we designing a terminal, interior and exterior parking spaces, as well as interior seats and hold room locations, passenger spaces. We have a lot of room for growth for this particular design terminal.
And largely in the middle of the day?
Largely in the middle of the day. That at night, overnight, our last arrivals between 11 and 1 a.m., let's say. Every gate is occupied right now.
I was just curious.
Yeah. Well, always room to grow. I would say we'll find room to grow. Yeah. If the demand is there, I think we know that Vermonters in our region need that growth.
No.
Right, Commissioners, anything else for Nick? Right, we move on to item 11, which Commissioner items. Helen, you're up first to lead
Right,
the conversation about the flagpole.
Yeah, this is just to give the commission some understanding. We have a section committee and they take care of the two cemeteries in the city, and one is on the airport property. So they've worked well with the airport on repairing the fence and maintaining it. And the committee now would really like, there's a flagpole. And there's, I think, a number of veterans who are over many years have been buried. It's a pretty old cemetery. So they would like to have the flagpole with a flag flying 24/7, and that requires that it be lighted. And so they apparently did chat with you.
Yep.
Maybe they called.
Rainville.
Yes, Chuck Rainville. He was gonna join us, but I don't know if he has. So he knows a lot more about this than I, but
Unless that might be it, unless Cindy is in it.
Cindy, are you Chuck? Well, might be.
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, you go by Chuck or Cindy, huh?
We share an email account.
Oh, okay. So they are interested and have gone through a number of, I don't know, research about a light from below and a light from above, you know, shining down. And their understanding is the FAA said you can't have anything shining up. But they have found, I guess, some lower wattage that they think wouldn't blind a pilot coming in. But they also have to deal with the city of Burlington, South Burlington, because our LDRs don't allow it. Lighted flagpole from above, I guess, which makes the most sense to me. And the city council has to direct the planning commission to work on this. I sit on the planning commission, so I'm willing to push it, but I just wanted to understand if they have some more information. I don't know if there's a possibility to have an additional conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Chuck, if I've left out anything really important without getting real technical, we're
Sure.
happy to listen to you.
Sure. So yeah, I think you've summarized it well. We're kind of stuck right now where the airport is preferring or saying we can't really do an uplighting arrangement, and the LDRs as they're currently written are all based on uplighting, no more than 24 inches above grade, no provisions for downlighting. So we're kind of caught. We have the avenue of pursuing through the planning commission, getting the LDRs amended so that we could do downlighting. But and we have no power in the cemetery, so whatever we're going to do is going to be solar powered. If the airport was willing to at least take a look at a uplighting selection, we can make a couple of them, probably be attached to the pole. If we're going to comply with the LDR, it's going to be no more than 2 feet above ground, directed at the flag. We'd be happy to bring something forward if that would be something that you would at least take a look at and consider.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I know I did originally speak or reach out to FAA too to see if they had an issue with uplighting, and I can follow up with them to see what
Okay. That would be great. I don't. So wonderful, thank you. I just wanted to get it have the conversation.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah.
Thank you.
So do you want me to follow up with Mr. Rainville then?
Yes, would that be good, Chuck, to have?
Sure, I can put something together and I'll copy both of you.
Great.
Yep.
Chuck, can you put your name into the chat so that we have it for your attendance and maybe your contact info, and then we have it too?
Sure. I'll do that.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Helen. Move on to 11.2, which is Robin's entry about discussing the seating in the terminal.
Yeah, so I was waiting for a pickup after a flight the other day, and I went to sit down by baggage claim and realized that there was duct tape on the seat, and I thought that was kind of odd because I hadn't really noticed that before. So I got up and I moved to another seat, and it had duct tape too. And then I moved to another one and another one, and in fact I counted 26 chairs that were duct taped in our baggage claim seating area, which was quite a surprise. One, that I'd never noticed that before. And two, it doesn't seem like an area that is a huge expense for us. And so I was really curious, is this something that's just waiting to be replaced in, in other areas? And some are so bad that honestly, they should be removed if we are in fact waiting for those, because it looks terrible.
Yeah, the answer is yes. We're about to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars through federal grants to replace seating. And I don't want to do anything drastic to spend funds right now when we're about to replace it. Jeff also has a really innovative idea too, that he's partnering with a company to reupholster some of these seats in exchange for some advertising. So some really creative things around the horizon, but we know it, we see it, and we do want to replace it, but I want to do it methodically. And right now, we don't have enough seats as there is right there, so I want to make sure we hold off before we start removing.
Can we have a sign or something that says, you know, new chairs are coming soon, or, you know,
We have a pretty big sign over there,
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Thank you. And then my only other question was, there's been concern raised, safety concern about the roof in over at BFA, which resulted in the ceiling tiles coming out of the ceiling and landing on the conference room table. And just wondered how it seems like a little bit weird that the airport is sort of responsible for the outside, they're responsible for the inside, but there are, you know, students, college students and high school students in these buildings. And so it's a, you know, a real safety concern. So just want to know where we are with that.
I'll work with the executive director on that one. I can't solve that right now, but there's other things that we're working with them on that I can resolve with that. This is the first I'm hearing of that.
Okay.
All right, so that's 11.2. So we'll move on to item 12, which is follow-up items. So are there any conversations we've had today where a commissioner would like follow-up at the next commission meeting?
Well, I mean, if you get closure, that would be great.
So you can note that as a follow-up item.
Sorry, can you say that again?
If they have some closure about the flagpole lighting,
Yeah, we can follow up on that.
I mean, I'll probably hear it from the sextons, but the commission might be interested.
Anything else? All right, so we move on to item 13, which is an executive session. So I have two motions. So the first motion is to move that the commission find that premature general public knowledge of information concerning ongoing litigation would clearly place the city at a substantial disadvantage. Do we hear a motion to that effect?
I will move that.
That is moved by Helen. Is there a second? That is seconded by Chip. And then based on that, there's a second motion, and that's to move that the commission go into executive session to receive confidential updates pertaining to ongoing litigation, and also to adjourn the regular session as no motion is expected to be forthcoming after the conclusion of the executive session. Do we have a motion to that effect?
I'll move that.
That's moved by Helen. Is there a second? That's seconded by Chip. All those in favor of those two motions, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed? All right, so you now adjourn the regular session and move into executive session. Great.